Disney has a history with adaptations. Disneyfication is a term that's been floating around for a while, even added in the dictionary, though not the same definition I'm using here. People who do this much better than me have talked about the Disney treatment in adaptations. Disney as a company creating Disney the brand. Part of that brand is a very distinct style, with changes here and there over the years, but come back in one form or another irregardless of the story they're adapting. Their fairy tales are the most popular in regards to this term, though Disney wasn't the first to do this. Fairy tales, because of the nature of how they're told, will change by word of mouth. Enter Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, German brothers who published the mass of the folk tales that we're familiar with. While writing down these tales, the brothers edited their fairy tales, adding the happily ever after endings, hoping to appeal to children, and setting the stories in Germany as part of a new wave in German nationalism, that the Nazis later used for propaganda 100 years later, because of course they did. Some think the Grimm brothers were the ones that told the more dark and gritty version of fairy tales, but I think part of that is due to their very, very, very appropriate name. Then there's Disney's adapting original published works. Most of the time Disney buys the rights to use the setting to create their own narrative, to use an aspect that was only a small part of the original work and make it into the main theme, or to buy the rights only to use small details to add to their already established series. Then there's holes, which is one of the closest to the source material I've seen in any movie. Part of it is due to the book's author Louis Sachar also writing the script and stay during the whole production, but it wasn't always like that. Richard Kelly from Donnie Darko originally wrote a script for Holes.
Set in the aftermath of a nuclear war in a corrupt futuristic prison, where boys are sent to die for their crimes digging holes. So very dark, you guys.
We'll make everything metal. Blacker than the blackest black times infinity.
So we follow Stanley Yelnats, wrongfully convicted for stealing a pair of shoes meant to be donated to an orphanage by a famous athlete. In the novel, Stanley is a chubby kid, bullied in school even including his teacher. In the adaptation, we have Shia LaBeouf.
Do it!
Let me tell you why we're burning up out here, man.
Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true!
I usually have an issue with movies that take an overweight character and hire a much thinner character, especially when their weight plays into how people act around them. But the novel follows Stanley's transformation sent to Camp Green Lake, where he loses the weight. I don't condone putting a child actor through that much hardship going up and down weight to play a role. I'll just pay to see them dig holes in the hot sun for 2 hours.
That's our philosophy here at Camp Green Lake.
Actually, I don't see how the whole digging thing works.
You take a bad boy, make him dig holes all day in the hot sun, and it turns him into a good boy.
I still don't get how it's successful.
Punishment and reward.
At the camp, Stanley learns to adjust and the story takes off. Both movie and novel intersperse 2 other stories accurately adapting the quick switch back and forth between the 3 of them. I've never seen that type of accuracy before in an adaptation. Among the counselors, both versions have more in the camp, but the only counselors that really show are Mr. Sir and Pendanski. Mr. in the novel, Doctor in the movie. Pendanski always bothered me in both versions. Of the 2 counselors, he seems like the one that's trying, referring them by their regular names, holding small meetings with them, but when it comes to another character...
You want to know why they call him Zero? Because there's nothing going on in his stupid little head. But the mental stress just causes his brain too much of a challenge. I mean, you might as well teach this shovel to read. Go ahead, Zero, take it. It's all you'll ever be good for.
What is your deal? Pendanski's behavior is slightly worsened for the movie, though. The warden is downgraded a bit for the film, attacking a camper with a freaking pitchfork in one chapter.
That's our philosophy here at Camp Green Lake.
But not in the movie. Stanley adjusts to the camp at first, facing hazing from the kids, more so than in the novel. The book even had a line where even the narrator pointed out Stanley's ease into the group. Everyone gets a grandfather, which is movie only. It helps in establishing a more clear connection with the 3 stories, with Stanley's grandfather believing in their family curse, and the warden's grandfather playing a role in connecting Green Lake, the town, with Camp Green Lake. Really, both versions are so close to each other. To discuss more differences would be nitpicky and go into spoiler territory. Sachar's script gave narration only in the beginning for Stanley to say, while the novel's narrator's dialogue is sprinkled in the movie.
You don't want to get bit by a yellow-spotted lizard. That is the worst thing that can happen to you. You will die a slow and painful death. Always.
I didn't see what the deal was. I had these lizards as pets when I was younger. They weren't really dangerous. I had a caiman too as a pet, so maybe my opinion on the safety of animals shouldn't be noted. The lizard scene was added for the movie. There weren't any scenes in the book that really showed how dangerous they were. For regular scenes, they painted spots on bearded dragon lizards. Harmless. I mentioned Kelly's script being overly dark for a family film, but this film doesn't shy away from some darker scenes. Mob rule, corrupt law enforcement, abuse in the troubled youth camp industry, which I could spend an entire video covering, even showing a character committing suicide. All the more surprising since it wasn't in the book. That character died accidentally. It was added in. Disney doesn't film suicides.
The lemming. Here's an actual living legend. For it's said of this tiny animal that it commits mass suicide by rushing into the sea in droves. Yet over they go, casting themselves bodily out into space.
I'm happy to say that my small time working in a bookstore, I've seen plenty of kids still picking this book up to read. It's a solid story written in an easy-to-digest way. It feels massive with over 300 pages, but not overwhelming. Sachar has been a writer for children's books since the 70s. He wrote a sequel to Holes in 2006. I haven't read it, so I can't say much about it. If I have children, I see myself reading this to them, but I see myself watching this film more. I found it simply more entertaining. Both stories play out the same way. Film is just the more entertaining medium I had with the story. With really the only bad thing I could say about the film is Shia LaBeouf's rap career.
2 suits, 2 tokens in hand. I got no respect cause I'm the new man. Got my shovel, shoes full of sand. Check out the tag, the name's Caveman.
This is C.B. Smith, and thanks for taking a page.